Hi there, this is Stephen, the Canterbury Crusaders Club Scapegoat, back with another of our Allies videos. And as you can see, this time we're going to be looking at Eldar and what they can bring to an Allied force. Start with the HQs. Obviously we've got a couple of options. Farseers, to be perfectly honest, are pretty much the only option due to the amazing psychic defence that they have at the moment. Runes of Warding is pretty much a must on a Farseer. Obviously, it's the best psychic defence in the game currently going. You obviously would have to worry if you were doing an ally of convenience army. We'll obviously assume for these purposes you don't have a Psyker in your main army, or you're looking to be able to counter Psyker heavy lists, such as opposing Eldar players or Nids at the moment, because obviously their psychic powers are really good currently with Biomancy. Probably the new demons as well. Again, they've got a lot of options. Usually with Farseers it comes down to what are the units you have in the army, depends on what powers and other equipment you give them. Obviously a jet bike Farseer gets that extra level of toughness and the manoeuvrability to move around. So say you've got a fast biker army, it can keep up with that. A foot Farseer tends to go with either a unit from the Eldar Codex that you're going to be putting into the Allied detachment, or perhaps if you're battle brothers with someone, so like Dark Eldar or Tau, and you're looking to field a unit that's a stationary unit to be perfectly honest behind an Aegis defence line. So we'll have a look at the other units that you might incorporate alongside a Farseer to fill out your troops, to fill out any other slots that might be useful with an Allied Farseer and an Eldar detachment in your army. Right, so now we're on to troops. In my opinion, and a lot of people's opinions, these are the only two troops worth taking as allies. From an Eldar detachment, you've got your jet bikes, whose general job is to sit in reserve, come on, maybe get line breaker, usually contest an objective late in the game. Obviously they're fast, they're toughness 4. Their shooting isn't a lot to write home about, but they're cheap. Coming in at 66 points if you don't buy any further upgrades. Nice and easy. Again, one of the better choices. The next one, however, Rangers and Pathfinders. Again, due to a really solid cover save, if you put them behind an Aegis line, they can withstand a lot of punishment as long as you take out any flamer weapons before they get to you. Pathfinders especially, with their 2-up cover save, hitting on 6s, obviously being snipers, with Pathfinders and Rangers, gets them that AP1 hit, so you're allocating AP1 across an enemy unit. Great if you're going to be taking out heavy or special weapons. Obviously not so great on independent characters because they'll just pass it on to a buddy. However, they have their uses. Both of the units are very good. Obviously Rangers and Pathfinders, because Eldar being a 4th edition Dex is quite expensive points-wise, especially if you're going for a full unit of 10. However, they do have their place, and they are still a reasonably good option. Jet bikes are my own personal favourite out of the two. However, as you've got those 2 slots, you can quite easily take both. The Pathfinders and Rangers obviously also make a really good bunker for a foot Farseer. If you haven't got any allied units hiding behind a defence line or in objectives or cover, again, much better for that purpose if you don't have a unit for your Farseer to babysit. However, jet bikes, again, coming from off the board, the Farseer on the jet bike doesn't necessarily want to be with a unit that starts off the board because you're going to be taking use and advantage of his powers every turn. Right, we're next on to Eldar heavy support choices. Again, in my opinion, these are 2 of by far the better choices, depending on what sort of army you are fielding as your main detachment. If you've got War Walkers, which obviously dual scatter lasers on all of them, it's 180 points for 24 straight to 6 shots. Arguably enough to take out a flyer, depending on if it's an Imperial flyer or not. I personally have given myself in that unit 2 missile launchers and 4 scatter lasers just for that extra bit of armour punch. Obviously, again, reasonably decent because the damage they can kick out, they can affect light vehicles, large units of infantry, monstrous creatures even. Again, Ballistic Skill 3 is a bit of a hamper for them, but points wise, for the amount of shots they kick out, at the strength they kick out, they are very good. Dark Reapers, a little bit more expensive than the War Walkers, especially once you factor in Exarch powers. The best weapon, if you're going to be taking on, say, a lot of Marine builds, It's probably the Tempest launcher with its strength 4, AP 3, it's 2 barrage templates. The Exarch can then take Crack Shot, which essentially allows him to reroll to wound and ignore cover. Means on his own he tends to eat Marine squads. He's got a couple of guys in there obviously for some extra damage, for some more guaranteed wounds at strength 5. Obviously they don't ignore the cover, but you're throwing enough wounds onto a unit that you're going to be causing them a hell of a lot of hurt. It is an expensive unit, and it's not necessarily the one I'd prefer to take over the Warwalkers, but again, it's a viable option, especially if you're in a marine heavy environment, and you need something there to pack that little bit of extra punch without getting too close, because their range is very good. Now we get to the elite slot. Fire Dragons, one of the best anti-air units in the game. I know it sounds a bit strange. You stick that Exarch on a quad gun, he'll gun down almost any flyer in the game. Given the right upgrades, he can ignore their cover save, and he can get tank hunters, so he's re-rolling pens, or failed pens I should say. It's 120 points if you whack on the fire pike, which isn't a lot for a guaranteed flyer kill. Obviously you've got 4 extra bodies in there to either soak up wounds, or should you get some Deathwing, decide they want a deep strike in your deployment zone, or some Marines, you can chuck some melter guns at them. Obviously it's expensive in the sense that it basically makes your quad gun and Aegis line cost twice as much. However, it is an almost guaranteed drop of any flyer in the game. The only ones you do have to worry about is the ones that have a invulnerable save, such as the Helldrake. But obviously, if you've got Eldar and you're taking Eldar allies, you're going to have to worry about the Helldrake anyway, because that thing will just rip through any of your units. These guys, however, I think are by far one of the better elite slots. A lot of the other elite slots in the Eldar Codex are either expensive or they just won't make their points back. Howling Banshees, obviously power swords, it's all well and good, but they've got no vehicles they can assault out of. Scorpions, it's just a toughness 3 Marine in assault, not brilliant. But overall, Fire Dragons I think by far the better unit out of the elite slot, and I'm surprised I haven't seen more people dropping one of these guys on a quad gun. Eldar detachments, much like their main army list, require a lot of synergy to be able to work. That is a small group, for instance, of things that generally tend to work quite well together. You've got the Fire Dragons on the quad gun, escorted by a Farseer, 3 jet bikes in reserve, and then the 3 Warwalkers. Obviously, a lot is key on the Farseer's powers themselves. Generally speaking, Guide is okay. If you're allying with Battle Brothers, you really want to be going with Prescience off the divination table, but it doesn't hurt to roll a couple of times on the divination table, especially if you've got Spirit Stones, seeing what 2 powers you roll and then dropping 1. Overall, like I said, a lot of synergy is required with the main army. Eldar can work very well as a small bulwark force to get you decent interceptor fire, decent psychic defence, and late game contest objectives. But that is something you have to bear in mind with Eldar. They are fragile, they are weak, they need to be backed up by someone perhaps a little tougher. Okay, so that's the end of our Eldar Allies video, and we'll be back with some more Allies videos soon.